voice17104.com. This is Zanetta Wingfield, and you're listening to The Voice 17104.com. The Voice 17104.com. You're now tuned into Real Rap on The Voice 17104, where Ron Chapel happens every Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, you know who this is. It's your girl Niagara. Yeah!
Hey, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Welcome to Real Rap with Ron Chapel. I know we had scheduled Monday Night Chapel for this time slot tonight, but the head of Monday Night Chapel, Mother Eleanor Harrison, is feeling a little bit under the weather, and so she rescheduled. Her guest was First Lady Crawley, who's also a pastor, and so she'll be on at a later date. And let me let you know now, we will probably be taking Memorial Day is next Monday night, if God give. We'll be taking Memorial's Day off. So we'll be back the following Monday, if God give, with an addition of Monday Night Chapel, where the preacher of the hour will be Pastor Bragman of, you tell me that church again, Chris?
Bethel AME.
Yeah, I keep wanting to say, I want to say New Bethel, but that's back in Detroit. That was Aretha Franklin's old church. But Bethel AME Church here in Harrisburg, he will be the preacher of the hour, and that'll be the second Monday in September. Okay, so how's everybody? Okay, is there anything y'all want to talk about tonight? What about the fourth indictment of former President Donald J. Trump? You know, isn't that something? You know, when I was a little kid, just like when you were younger, you were in grade school, you remember the teacher telling you that one day you could grow up to be president? And the teacher really didn't mean it, but Barack Obama took it to heart, and it worked out for him. You know, but now we have a president, a well-respected office that we were always taught to look up to. He has now been indicted for the fourth time. And on top of that, he's still allowed to run for re-election. So do y'all have any feelings about that? Do you think that the indictments are justified? And do you think, which some Trumpers say, some MAGA people say, that it's election interference? How do you feel about that? Well, personally, I don't think that it is an election interference, because apparently he committed those crimes for a judge to sign off on. And so he put himself in that position. And as Judge checking today, that the judge is overseeing the case in Washington, D.C., a defendant is not his choice to decide when he should go to trial. And so, you know, if America want to continually say that no one here is above the law, that all people should be held to the same standard, well, then I think that it's all fair, it's all well and good, that if he committed crimes, and if he, and I got one camera here trying to reconnect, but if he's liable to go before the halls of justice to state his case as to why he shouldn't be convicted of said crimes, well, then that's all well and good, because no one is above the law. And so if you have any comments you want to make about that, you want to make about the matter of fact, one trial date was set, the DC trial, that was set today to begin on March the 4th. Now, Donald Trump's team wanted to put that off until April of 2026, hoping that it would be after the election, and hoping that if Trump won the election, that he would be able to pardon himself, or have his attorney general destroy all the evidence that caused them to be indicted. But that's not going to happen, because the judge did set the date at March the 4th, and Trump's team said they will appeal that court date. They're saying that that's not enough time. We know that is 7 months away, if God give. And with the modern technology, nowadays, there's plenty of time for them to, for his defense counsel to seek through all the discovery material and evidence that Jack Smith provided to them, that the prosecution provided to them. So it's enough time for them to give a good defense if they feel that they can find one. And so that's the way things set right now. Okay, if you wonder why I have glasses on, because the lights here are pretty bright, But anyway, I'm going to try to wing it without them. And first, let me say congratulations to Wendy Cherianye and her son Taff. Their program, Let's Talk About It, celebrated its 3rd year anniversary today. And so I'm glad that y'all are still going strong. And I wish y'all the best always. Okay, 60 years ago, August the 28th, 1963, Dr. King was involved on a historic march to Washington, D.C., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, a lot of you know that, okay, there he is right there, okay, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated in 1968. There's a lot of controversy about the way he lost his life, because there's been a lot of journals and a lot of people, authors, who say that he did not necessarily die as a result of the gunshot there at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. The late great Dick Gregory used to always say that he had evidence that Dr. King was actually smothered to death in a hospital, the hospital that he was taken to. He was spat upon and smothered to death with a pillow. Okay, but the great Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, some of us are fortunate enough to say that we were around when Dr. King walked the earth. And he was a very, very well-respected leader among our people, just like Malcolm X was. Now they had slightly different ways to look at how we should deal with what we were facing. Malcolm X, as you know, was more aggressive. He wanted to fight fire with fire, even though we were greatly outnumbered and really had no win. But he did not believe in a non-violent concept that Dr. King was espousing. And the two of them, they did respect one another. They just also respect that they saw things differently. Okay, well, in honor of that march on DC back in 1963, first, let me give you a little bit of how the climate was for Black people. There were very few Black people in respectable positions at a lot of these jobs. Okay, there were schools and colleges that prohibited Black people from enrolling in them, and so and also living in certain areas. It was restrictions on Black people living where they could afford to, where they wanted to. And then we'll forget, as a preteen, my mother used to have to look in the paper to try to find a place for us to move to occasionally. And one thing she looked at in the classified section, if there was a vacancy, she looked to see what rating it was, because they had certain ratings, Chris Thomas. Sure. If you wanted to move into a place, into a flat, or into an apartment, they had a rating, which meant whites only. They had a B rating, which meant mixed, and I forgot what the C rating was for, but so just because you had the money and you had the desire, it wasn't not necessarily a given that you'd be able to move where you wanted to move or live where you wanted to live. There were certain there were restrictions in a lot of cities. There were neighborhoods that you could not be caught in If you are a person of color after a certain hour at night, like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, if you did not, if you weren't on your way to work or on your way from work, every police car that turned the corner would stop you, throw you against the wall, and throw you against the wall and pat you down and really, really mistreat you. You know, there were some restaurants that we were not allowed to go in and buy food. You know, we had to go to the back door of the restaurant if there's anything we wanted to buy. If you went to the back door of the restaurant to buy any food, your food was primarily what was left on the plates from some white diner. If you wanted a steak sandwich, for instance, well, if there was a white person that had ordered a steak and had not finished the steak, well, the scraps from his plate would go into your sandwich. And there was nothing really that you can do about it. You know, we did not have any sort of redress of grievances whatsoever. You know, you go to a police department complaining about mistreatment, and you're liable to get locked up, if not worse. You know, or the same cops that you went to complain about, when you stepped out of that police department from making a complaint, they would be right there at the door waiting to deal with you. Okay, so things were a whole lot different, you know. Yes, we have made a lot of accomplishments, a lot of strides in the area of liberties. And I tell you, that's why it sort of irks, you know, people from my generation when we see what this younger generation has continually been doing against their own people, against the cause that we all held dear. You know, it's like they want to moonwalk us back in the past, Chris Thomas. You know, and so, you know, but there's a ram in the bush, being that there are a lot of young people also that are in pursuit of the truth and know that they are now in a position to fight for the causes to give our people more justice. And so we salute them. We salute them. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight, you know, I spoke about the commemoration march, or as they like to say, the continuation of the March on DC that was held back August the 28th, 1963. They had a continuation of that march this past Saturday to the Mall of Washington, D.C. And so we got a video, Pastor Thomas. Now, what we wanted to do, we wanted to show you clips from the original march and where Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. But Chris Thomas told me that speech is now copyrighted. And, you know, the station here, if we did not get permission from the owners of that video, then there would be a lot of jeopardy that we would face here at The Voice 17104. So we're not able to see that, to show that. Okay. But what we can do is show you the rally that was held this past Saturday in DC, in case you didn't see it. And so, Chris Thomas, do you have that queued up? Okay, we have audio with the two, right?
And freedom movers, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, all bastion leaders of the AME Zion Church. And today our pledge is not to let the movement die, but to continue until victory is won. Thank you.
Okay, pause there for a minute, Chris Thomas. Okay, I have two cameras here. One is my phone. Now, you won't be able to see this video on my phone, okay, if you're watching the show from my phone, from my Facebook page. But if you, Chris Thomas, did you put this one on my page also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's another video on my page where you'll be able to see the video that we're going to show. There's another posting of this show. And so I'm going to turn this camera here off. And so you can see the, and this one has a problem connecting anyway. So You can see the video that we're featuring. Okay, Pastor Thomas, proceed, please.
So it's time to get louder.
That's why today we have to march.
Raise our voices.
To cause a little good trouble.
And make this country live up to its promise for all Americans. Your voice is your power.
The time to use it is now.
Singer and award-winning actress, Miss Melba Moore.
We were experiencing some audio issues.
Lift every voice and sing till heaven ring. Ring with the harmony from His beauty. Let our rejoicing rise high and lift its sky. Let it resound as a rolling sea. We used to sing this one in the cotton field. Sing way over water. Way in the water. Come on, children. Way in the water. I know that God was good in trouble. The water. Is God over sanity. Now has brought us so far. Go this way. Thou hast by thy might led your holy light was forever in your path, Lord. Lord, I'm praying. Sing that we will sing a song full of the things that God done has done. We're gonna sing a holy song full of the hope that the present has brought. Yes, Jesus. Rising sun. Well, it's a brand new day. Just begun. That's my job. Till the victory, yeah. Until it's won. We should sing this one in the cotton fields too.
Sing low, sing chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Chairman of the Board, National Action Network, let's welcome Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson.
Good morning. No justice. No justice. No peace. On behalf of the board of the National Action Network and our president, Reverend Sharpton, we are thankful for all of those who are gathering together, participating in this march forward. It is not merely a march of reflection. It is a march of projecting into the future. We want our sons and daughters to come to an era where they can inherit what we have fought for and invested in. And we will not be robbed in this hour of all that we fought and invested. We will not let the clock turn back. We will not go back to what we've been. We'll go forward to take over and to be all that God has intended for us to be. There's a passage in Jeremiah, real quickly, it says, Jeremiah is talking about the conditions of Israel. And he says, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. That is the predicament of African Americans in this country today. We fought in the fight. The harvest has come. The nation is built on our backs. We've come through great difficulties and great hardships. And we've had legislation passed. We've had marches. We've had achievements. We now have 60 people in the Congress. But the harvest is past, meaning that the time we fulfilled our purpose happened. And then there came the time of the second harvest. And we still, African Americans, are not saved. This nation was built on our investment, built on the backs of African Americans, African people, built in sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears. And the harvest came after our investment. But the plantation owners, those who gathered the harvest, kept all of the harvest for themselves and never distributed. And now people talk about today old money. Well, old money is simply our money. It's the money that we didn't get for what we invested. And we're here today to call for the check to come back satisfied. Martin King said it was a check that turned insufficient funds. Today we come to serve notice that we are determined to collect what we have invested, what our forefathers and mothers have deposited in this nation. Every measure, every single measure of quality of life in this country, African Americans are at the bottom. You take any disease, you take our schools, you take our economics, every aspect, we're at the bottom. But we are not going to. We're not going to stay there because another generation is rising to build upon the generations before us. And not only is another generation rising, we're linking arms with others who are oppressed. Because our oppression is a disease that is not containable. You cannot be discriminatory on one people and think that that will not show up in all segments of the society. And therefore, we are all here because we all have an investment in this nation turning and living up to its possibilities. So I ask you, let us leave here determined to not let the fire go out, determined to be engaged, determined to rise to the moment. Martin King said it this way. Ralph Waldo Emerson said in 1871, if you can build a better mousetrap than your neighbor, even if you build your house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to your door. And this becomes increasingly true. We must not set out to be just a great Negro doctor or Negro lawyer, but if we do, we've already flunked the matriculation examination into the University of Integration. Martin went on to say, if it falls your lot to be a street sweeper, go out in street streets. Street streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. Street streets like Beethoven composed music. Street streets like the marble maker. Street streets so well that the whole host of heaven and earth will pause and say, here lived the great street sweeper who swept his job well. If you can't be a pine on the top of the hill, be a shrub in the valley. If you can't be a main road, be a path. If you can't be the sun, be a star. For it ain't by size that you win or you fail, but be the best of whatever you are. Get together, my brothers and sisters. There's a great camp meeting on the other side.
She is the Vice Chair of the Board of National Action Network. Let's welcome Jennifer Jones Austin.
As Vice Chairwoman, I stand before you proudly, representing the women of NAN, Ebony Riley, Rachel Nordlinger, Katrina Jefferson, Trudy Lucas, Dominique Sharpton, Ashley Sharpton, and many more who, like the women 60 years ago, worked tirelessly to help make this moment possible. In words penned decades ago by my father, comrade of Dr. King, faith and civil rights leader, Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones Jr., blacks in America still today have freedom without finance and access without assets, which is tantamount to existence without equity. 160 years after slavery, 60 years after the March on Washington, and still these words ring true. Today, unemployment for black Americans has hit record lows, but black persons, equally educated and experienced, still earn significantly less than their white counterparts. Black women are the most educated group in the United States, yet many are denied fair wages and their worth. And with lower pay comes higher debt, all but ensuring the average black family's inability to save and build wealth. With these and numerous other systemic barriers working together, today 1 in 3 black children lives in poverty, compared to less than 1 in 10 white children. 60 years ago, Dr. King and movement leaders understood that racism is the most effective tool for upholding an unjust capitalist system. That's why they marched on Washington for jobs and freedom. Reverend Sharpton, Andrea, and Martin Luther King III, they understand that, and we all understand that. And that's why we are gathered here today to march for jobs. Jobs that pay a true and living wage, for real and meaningful opportunities to grow and build assets, for our children to no longer live in poverty. We come again today, and we're going to keep coming until this nation ends economic injustice in all of its forms: wage discrimination, education inequality, criminal injustice and mass incarceration, misogyny, voter suppression, environmental injustice, gender identity bias, and more. As beneficiaries of all the good, all the blood and the sweat and the tears that were shed by the leaders and doers of the movement 60 years ago, the burden bearers, we now are the burden bearers. And ending economic injustice is our burden. It's our responsibility. Together we can. May God order our steps.
She is the Youth Huddle co-founder and chair, accompanied by National Action Network Youth and College Division Leadership and National Youth Leader and Organizer. Let's welcome Ashley Sharpton, Usman Diallo, Felipe Dosa, and Deanna Burton.
Greetings. My name is Deanna Burton, and I am a member of the hard-working Kappa Epsilon chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. If we were to trace the path of modern activism, I'd start 60 years ago, where leaders like A. Philip Randolph and Bayard Rustin organized the first marched on Washington amidst the Jim Crow era, with hundreds of thousands of individuals joined from across the nation. They bore witness to Dr. King's impassioned call to action. As I gaze upon you all gathered here today, I see a reflection of that historic crowd. A multitude of individuals from diverse backgrounds standing shoulder to shoulder, marching in unison to champion a single cause. Yet as we stand in the capital of what is supposed to be the greatest nation in the world, we find ourselves a mere shadow of the vibrant tapestry that Dr. King envisioned in his dream. Though we've made remarkable strides towards equality, we are further from that dream than any other time in recent history. Redlining and gerrymandering has distorted the democratic process. Thugs disguised as patriots have attempted to interfere with the peaceful transition of power. Books are being rewritten, teachers and writers are on strike. Students are being gunned down, racial tension is on a rise, and young people are being silenced. And time is running out. We face a dangerous erosion of the progression and knowledge that we have created, threatening the very foundation that a just society is built on. As we stand on this ground, echoing the activists and their legacy who came before us, let us be the force that reshapes the narrative of our time. Together, we hold the power to mend the fabric of our nation and make oppression non-existent. Today, we draw strength from the diverse tapestry of backgrounds assembled here as we heed the call for unity, equality, and justice. Let our actions be a testament that echoes for generations to come. Let us rise to the challenge, emboldened by the urgency of our mission, knowing that a future built upon truth, equality, and compassion is within our grasp. Our response to these challenges need to be unwavering, a commitment to preserving accurate knowledge, protecting women's rights, empowering students and young people like the individuals behind me, and advocating for the adequate resources for those in need. For it is through that we pave the path for a brighter and more just and equitable future. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Felipe Dosa. I'm the Youth and College Director of National Action Network, a student at Morehouse College, and a proud Harlemite. Originally born in Togo, West Africa, I carry with me the dreams of 2 continents and the aspirations of a generation. Today, I stand before you to ask a simple question that is waiting on my heart. What is happening to the young people of America? Our youth are faced with challenges unseen in previous generations. They're battered with an education system that is rewriting history, that is so expensive that we are taking lifetime census loans. One that is also affecting affirmative action. With gun violence as the leading death of young people, many of us are just trying to make it to adulthood. We have a planet that is overheating, that is leaving our health in question. And I still haven't talked about the mental health issues, job securities, and many more. Now, of course, we are in a better place. You see, I do stand on the shoulders of greatness. I stand in the same spot as one of the most honorable Morehouse brothers, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I stand with one of the leaders of the Civil Rights Movement, the Reverend Al Sharpton. I stand with greatness and excellence in this movement. Now, it's time for me to ask you a second question. What can we do for the youth of America now? Well, I say look around you. We organize young people from all over, specifically at HBCUs like Clark Atlanta, Howard, and so much more. Ask them around you. Let them know that you could join the movement, you could join National Action Network, and work together. We also created a youth and college policy agenda, and we can talk a little bit about the acts that we want to push. For example, the Strength and Diversity Act, which provides federal funding to support diversity in our elementary and middle schools. The Mental Health Service for Students Act, which provides federal funding for on-site mental screening, treatments, and outreach programs. There's so much more. As the Youth and College Director of National Action Network, I know that change is possible. Together, we can build bridges between communities, create understanding where there is confusion, and unite a fire of change that will light the way for generations to come. In closing, let's remember that youth are not just the future, but they are the present. And the time to act is now. Together, we can transform their lives, and in doing so, shape the destiny of this great nation. Thank you. And may we march forward for hope, resilience, and determination. No justice? No justice? Thank you. My name is Ashley Sharpton. I'm the founder and director of National Action Network's Youth Huddle. 60 years ago, I wasn't alive. I don't think anybody behind me was alive. But my generation and those who come after, there's a lot that we sometimes take for granted because so much has changed since 1963. We have black elected officials across the country and even had our first black president. We have black millionaires, movie directors, athletes, doctors, business people, and have excelled in every industry. 6 decades ago, there were no female speakers at the march, and there was no social media to help amplify our voices. As my father, Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, often says, we've come a long way, but our work is far from over. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that America had given black Americans a check for equality that was marked insufficient funds in the Bank of Justice. Reverend Sharpton often reminds us in National Action Network that in 1963, they came to Washington to make it plain that the check for equality had bounced. We're here today in 2023 to be clear, that debt must be paid. We came to the Lincoln Memorial because Lincoln made a promise, as Rev often said. We didn't go to the Jefferson because he didn't promise us anything. But Lincoln made a promise. And the ancestors must have gave him forewarning because we can't see Lincoln today. I think he's hiding. Nevertheless, we're here in front of Lincoln because those promises must be fulfilled. A lot of times we say that we are our ancestors' wildest dream. We've heard many speakers today say that. And we are in every sense. But we can't allow their sacrifices and their fight for equality to have been in vain. Voting rights are being taken away in states around the country. And the John Lewis Voting Rights Act must be reconstructed and enacted into law. The highest court in the land dismantled Roe v. Wade and women's right to bodily autonomy. The Supreme Court also made it easier to discriminate against the LGBTQ+ community. The court ended affirmative action in higher education and opened the door for other areas to end DEI programs. Black mothers like Ajika A.J. Owens are still being killed with no accountability for their murderers. Young people like Tyree Nichols are still being killed by police, and national police reform legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has been solved. This is why we still march today. Sometimes, people of my generation and under like to say we outside. And we outside. We outside to turn up and get drunk. We outside to turn up and go to a party. We outside in our best silver lining for Beyonce and Club Renaissance. Everyone is outside distracted. A lot of us are outside for the wrong reasons. But today we're outside for the right one. We came here today to continue what they did 60 years ago. So yes, we outside to push for progress. But we know we need to get inside to make change. We know we need to get inside to turn demonstration into legislation. We got to shake up the makeup of the Supreme Court. We need to get student debt relief for all. We need to get inside and teach young people about history and education. I'm so proud National Action Network's Youth and College Division, under the organizing efforts of Ousmane Diallo and Felipe Dosa, organized students from 32 schools from around the nation, because we must empower the next generation together. This summer, my sister and I went with our dad to South Carolina to rediscover our own roots. We visited the plantation where my great-great-grandfather Coleman Sharpton was enslaved. We stood on the ground where our forefathers worked tirelessly without any rights or liberty. Many of our families were outside on the plantation. But now it's our time to get inside and keep making change from within. We've come a long way. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. But the fight for justice and equality continues. We're in this together, and the only way we keep moving forward is if we move in unison. I'm honored to stand here today with all of you representing a diverse coalition of various ethnicities, religions, gender identities, the young, the elderly, and people from all backgrounds as we show a united front against those who want to take us back to a time when we have fewer rights. Together we say, not on our watch. Together we say, not on our watch. Together we say, not on our watch. For whatever, backwards never. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Thank you very much. Peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. My name is Usman Diallo. I proudly serve as the National Youth and College Field Director. We are gathered here today, despite our obvious differences, for a common purpose. A purpose towards a more just society. A purpose towards a more equal society. A purpose towards a more free society. Because it seems as though every year that we move forward, every year that we push forward, we are pushed backwards. It seems as though America is not aligning with its promise on paper. It reminds us that since its inception, it tried to put our bodies and mind in bondage. So this is why we fight back. This is why in times of darkness we become the beacons of light. We become the beacons of light empowered by truth, justice, and freedom. And to our young people, this is why it's important that we recognize this is not a mere commemoration, that we realize this is a continuation of a struggle to bend the arc of our moral universe towards justice. Nelson Mandela once said, young people are capable, when aroused, of bringing down the towers of oppression and raising the banners of freedom. So to that I say it's time. It is time that we show up like we did in the midterms of 2022 and said no way to a red wave. It's time that we show up and stand up as we did in 23 for the Tennessee 3, when 3 legislators protested for common sense gun laws and 2 of them happened to be black and those 2 were expelled. It is time that we prepare for 2024 and organize for 44, because our fight is long. So when I say we shall, you say overcome. We shall. Overcome. We shall. Overcome. When I say no justice, you say no peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. When I say black lives, you say matter. Black lives. Matter. Black lives. Matter. This here, brothers and sisters, have been some of the great rallying calls for our people from the march in 63, where we marched for the same access to jobs, justice, and freedom our counterparts had, to 23, when we are demanding they restore and expand those same rights. This here is about building the bridges of our movement, bridging the gaps of the movement and filling the cracks so we can nurture the roses that grew from concrete. Because we shall overcome. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. Thank you.
Please welcome former Speaker of the California Assembly and 41st Mayor of the great city of Los Angeles, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa.
Good morning. What an honor it is for me to be here. You see, I remember 1963. I remember watching it on TV. And in 1968, I helped to form the Black Student Union, United Mexican American Students, and we came together. I'm honored to be here because I know that I'm here because there was a Civil Rights Act. I'm here because there was a Voting Rights Act. I'm here because there was an affirmative action program that gave me a shot. And we're here to say we're going to fight for affirmative action. We're going to stand up for the notion that every one of us deserve equal opportunity. Every one of us deserve to live the dream. You know, some 250 years ago, our forefathers, they weren't mine, but, you know, they were the nation's forefathers. They talked about all men being created equal. Well, obviously, they were only talking about men and only white men of property. And ever since then, we've been fighting to create a more perfect union. We've been fighting to say to America, we're here. We want to participate. We want to dream like the rest of you. We want a fair and just society. And so we're here today to say that poverty is not an accident. As Nelson Mandela once said, it's man-made. And that means it's a choice, and a choice that we need to make. I live in a state, fourth largest economy in the world in California, with the highest effective poverty rate in America. We live in a country richer than any country in the history of the world. And yet, we've got more poverty than the vast majority of Western industrialized nations. That's a decision that people made. And we're making a decision as well. And that decision is we're going to continue the dream. We're going to fight to keep the door open. We're going to make sure that every single one of us get that opportunity. That's why we're here. That's why we're celebrating today, and that's why I'm honored to be with you. And so I want to say, no justice, no justice. And I'm going to say a few words in Spanish because nobody has and I can't. Mira, es un honor estar aquí con ustedes. Entiendo que estoy aquí porque había un movimiento de derechos civiles. Estoy aquí porque había los derechos de votar. Estoy aquí porque había un programa de acción afirmativa que me dio la oportunidad de ir a la universidad. Y entendemos, vamos a ser en English, y entendemos que el papel de primero no es golpear tu pecho y decir soy tan único. El papel de primero es abrir la puerta para los demás. And so I'm honored, like we all are, to be here because the role of the first is not to bang on your chest and say how great I am. The role of the first is to open up the rest. God bless you. No justice. No justice. Gracias.
Let's welcome Anti-Defamation League inaugural rabbinic fellow, Rabbi David Wohl.
Years ago, there was a man who was a master of dreams. His name was Joseph, and when he was a child, he had a dream that the stars and the sun and the moon bowed down to him, and he told his brothers about this dream, and they hated him for it. And they sold him into slavery, and he went to Egypt. We were in a dungeon. He interpreted dreams and grew to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh and became viceroy of Egypt. And the question is, Joseph fell by dreams and he rose by dreams. What's the difference? The difference is that Joseph fell when he could only hear his own dreams, and he rose when he began to hear the dreams of others. This is a spot where America learned to listen to others' dreams, to the dreams of its own that it had shut out for so long. And this is a time when we renew our listening to each other's dreams. And I want to describe that dream to you with a simple story. There was a boy named Hugo Grin who grew up to be a rabbi in England, but when he was a child in Auschwitz in a concentration camp. In 1944, the worst place in the world, a place of death and destruction and cruelty and horror. And it was the middle of the winter and bitter cold. And he was there with his father, and his father took the margarine ration and used it to light the candles of the winter festival of Hanukkah. And Grin said to his father, "How can you do this? This is our food. This is what we live on." And his father told him something that he never forgot. He said, "My child, we have learned that you can live for 3 weeks without food. You can go for 3 days without water, but you cannot live for 3 seconds without hope." And that's why we're here. Because whatever the conditions are that together we have faced, in whatever places at whatever times, we have never, ever given up hope. We still believe in the promise of this moment and of this place. That anti-Semitism, racism, all sorts of hatred and bigotry, that it can be overcome. That is the dream and that is the hope. As the Talmud says, you don't have to finish the work, but you're not allowed to give up on it. And so I want to express the dream in the words of an ancient prophet, because, of course, we're celebrating a modern prophet. Micah looked at the world, a world filled with darkness and despair, and he said that each of us will sit under our own vine and fig tree, and there will be none to make us afraid. And that is what we pray for. That candle, that moment, that promise, that dream that we listened to 60 years ago, and God willing, with God's blessing, once again, listening to each other, we can hear the echoes and the promise of that dream again. Thank you.
Senior Fellow, Shalom Hartman Institute, founder and co-director of Muslim Leadership Initiative. Please welcome Abdullah Antefri.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon you all. I bring the regards and the greetings of many, many Muslim Americans, majority of whom are African Americans. Islam, through our African American brothers and sisters, has been part of American story from day one. You have and you will hear many members of the African American Muslim community today and beyond today. I would like to, in this 2 minutes, highlight two major tricks of evil. Evil never runs out of tricks, but the two most successful ones is evil convinces us that it doesn't exist. It finds its way to deceive us because there are no visible signs, symbols, and rituals of racisms of evil. Our job, especially if and when, to recognize racism when there are no racists, when there are no burning crosses, when there are no robes, when there are no other elements, because those hoods and robes, burning crosses are manifesting in the form of mass incarceration, in the form of police brutality, in the form of voter suppression, in the form of preventing people of color from entering great universities like Duke University, where I work and teach. We have to recognize, we have to remove the invisible cloth of racism and evil when it doesn't exist and manifests itself in the form of policies, in the systems of governance. The second trick of evil, once we remove this invisible cloth and show its naked ugliness, it divides us. It says racism is a black problem, homophobia is a gay problem, Islamophobia is a Muslim problem, anti-Semitism is a Jewish problem. It divides us. It says black church is different than black mosques. It divides us, weakens us. If we assign these forms and manifestations of hate to particular communities, and if we don't understand that this is one big cancer, one big evil that we all, people of all faith or no faith, people of any background, we have to form a united moral front and fight racism if and when, especially if and when it doesn't seemingly visible and apparent to us, and when it tries to us together in one force. Thank you, and inshallah we will destroy these two and every other forms of tricks of division, racism, disunity, and we will come back in the spirit of the 60th anniversary of the march. Thank you, and may God Almighty bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
President of Planned Parenthood and President of Sister Song, let's welcome Alexis McGill Johnson and Monica Simpson.
you to all the organizers of today's march. Thank you, Nan. Thank you, Reverend Sharpton and the King family for your vision, your leadership, your commitment to honoring the dream. I am proud to stand here before you as only the second Black president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Federation of America and the Planned Parenthood Action Fund in over 100 years. Even as the Supreme Court has tried to wind back the hands of time, 60 years of voting rights, 50 years of reproductive rights, even as politicians move to deny our history, stop us from talking about our bodies, our sexuality, and our self-determination, they are trying to scare us from crossing state lines just to get access to health care. They are literally trying to hold us hostage in our states. Even as they try to block us from exercising our right to vote. Let me tell you something, try as they might. We stay encouraged and ready for the fight. Last year, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, stripped us of our freedom to control our own bodies, but reproductive rights and civil rights groups came together because we know we can't get free unless we control our own bodies, our lives, and our futures. We know that the same states that are banning abortion rights are also blocking our ballots. We know that we are stronger together, bolder together, and that our arms must be linked because our fates and our freedoms are intertwined. We know that we are in a moment, one that is several generations long. But you and we are the momentum. Together, old and young, when we organize in our churches and on our campuses, on our barbershops and our beauty salons, on TikTok and on Zoom, we will still be in these streets. We will still be marching and voting and being unapologetic and unafraid and unstoppable. We know that today's fight is not about today. It is about tomorrow. It is about what the next generation is going to learn, who gets to represent them, and who controls their bodies. And we know we have the power right now. We have the power in 2024. We have power that the other side is terrified of. We know that we have the power to bury the Jim Crow relic of the filibuster so we can move forward legislation to guarantee our right to freedom and our right to vote. We know we have the right to be able to elect the people who stand for reproductive freedom and justice, and we know that the fight is going to be long. It took 80 years to get from Seneca Falls to women's suffrage. It took 50 years to get from Stonewall to legalize gay marriage. 60 years just from the Niagara movement to the civil rights movement, and we know 400 years too long. It may take 60 more to make Dr. King's dream come true, but we will be out here fighting every day because we know when we fight, we win.
Okay, go back to the video, Chris. Go back to the video, please.
Today. Yes! Can y'all do a little response, call and response with me if I say we must fight for freedom? Can you say that? We must fight for freedom. We must fight for justice. It will take all of us to get to the other side. My name is Monica Simpson. I am the executive director of Sister Song. We are the National Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective. And I stand here today standing on the shoulders of Black Southern women freedom fighters. I stand on the shoulders of Black queer feminists. I stand on the shoulders of the Black women who created the reproductive justice movement in 1994 to center our experiences, our needs, and to deepen our understanding that we have to ensure that we are fighting for a holistic future and vision. They told us that we have the human rights to be able to have the children that we want in the ways that we want, to be able to end pregnancies without shame but with dignity, to be able to parent our children in healthy and safe environments. Y'all, this work is deeply rooted in our ability to have bodily autonomy and to make our own decisions about our families, our bodies, and our futures. Do y'all feel me today, good people?
Turn the volume down, please. Okay, that was a beautiful occasion, beautiful occasion, beautiful occasion. a lot of very articulate, informed people there speaking, and it was a multicultural event. Sorry, we don't have time to show you all of it, but the speakers, they were white, they were black, they were Hispanic, they were Jewish, they were Indian, all of God's people. And of course, there was a Lincoln Memorial. Now, the first march was at the mall in DC, but that was this past Saturday here, the one that you just saw. And I tell you, it gives you hope. It gives you hope to know that there are some young folks out there that really know what's going on and really appreciate how far we have come. And so the march goes on. The march goes on. You know, it's no time to sit around and feel like, you know, we reached that plateau. No, we must strive on. We must strive on. And you young people, the ball is now in your court. Is now in your court. Okay, you will be the leaders that will take the reins, that hopefully lead our people to higher heights. You know, there's been a lot of accomplishments. A lot of people strove, fought, and marched and died for a lot of opportunities for you to have. And so show your appreciation and keep marching on in a positive way. Yes, in a positive way. I want to thank you that took the time to watch this video and also to tune into the program. And as I say, we'll probably take next Monday off, Memorial Day, Monday, the first Monday in September, of course. And so we wish you all a blessed and safe and enjoyable Memorial Day weekend. If you're traveling, we pray your traveling mercies to and from wherever you may be going, and traveling mercies to your friends and relatives that may be coming to see you. Okay, don't forget you live in a major city, so maintain that capital city. You live in a capital city, maintain that capital city frame of mind. And on another note, there's somebody running for office. There's a big election coming up in November. Everybody's not on the ballot. Some people are running and write-in campaigns. And I tell you, one of my part-time jobs is up in the Uptown area, and I haven't seen one yard sign or one particular political announcement or advertising yet. And somebody is gonna run out of time, if they're not careful, they don't get on the stick, wishing and hoping ain't gonna do it. And that ain't gonna feed the bulldog. So somebody has got to get to work quick, fast, in a hurry. And I only say that because I care. Okay, if I didn't, I wouldn't say nothing. Believe me, I know how to be quiet. Okay, so peace and love, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Pastor Chris Thomas, you have anything to say before we close out?
Excuse me. Just thank you, man, for taking that trip back down memory lane to show us freedom and liberty, past, present, and potentially future as well. So thank you. That was inspiring. And I look forward to actually watching the rest of the video, investing some time watching that in myself as well. So thank you, man, for sharing tonight's program and the wealth of wisdom that you imparted as well.
Okay, thank you for your kind words. Peace, love, and good night, y'all. That's a good picture.